Welcome back to the Filthy Liberal Scum Podcast. This is your host, Justin the Filthy Liberal Scum Rosario. This is the Mike Murphy.
Hello.
And, of course, the Fat Smug Bastard.
They're showing their nipples in Asheville. We must do something about it.
Duct tape.
Not duct tape.
Duct tape fixes everything.
Not duct tape on the nipples.
Yes, duct tape on the nipples. Hey, some people are into that sort of thing. All right, so since we had some technical issues before the show started, we have a slightly abbreviated show. So we're going to jump right into it. State of the Union. Impressions.
I thought it was a good speech. I thought it was very inspirational, especially towards the end. You know, you try to rally the country to support gun control measures.
Inspirational.
Inspirational.
Glenn.
I liked it. I think he talked about the middle class, which is important, and he talked about the fact that people on minimum wage actually work, which is fascinating because if you listen to Rand Paul afterwards, he apparently doesn't think so.
People on minimum wage don't work?
Well, he thinks that everything Obama spoke for was just giving things away to people who don't work, which means he didn't listen to the speech.
Shocking. It's all right, I didn't listen to Rand Paul's speech. Okay, I only got to hear part of it because I was in the middle of having computer issues, and I got banned from Facebook for posting a picture that Republicans find objectionable, and I knew it was coming. It was more of a principle thing. As soon as I put it up, I knew I was going to get banned for about a week. But
was it a picture of evolution?
No, but it was a picture of a black man being lynched by white people. So, of course, they found this extremely objectionable. Oh, I don't want to see that. You know, let's bury the bad parts of history. We don't want to talk about that. You know.
No, sometimes some pictures are a little graphic. No, I mean, you know.
Yeah.
I've seen
reality.
Yeah, really. It's
remember.
There's a reason kids aren't on Facebook. Or they're not supposed to be. Yeah, exactly. It was like, oh, I don't want to see this. Oh, I find this objectionable. So I got banned for a week. Fuck them.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
You didn't know? I haven't seen you since last week. Well, actually, you weren't here last week.
Oh, yeah, last
you
week,
bastard. Yeah. So, Obama did touch on a whole bunch of stuff. He touched on the minimum wage. He touched on troops coming home. 34,000 troops are going to be coming home by this time next year.
Right.
Which is roughly half of what we have there in Afghanistan. A cynical person might say that he's going to keep bringing troops home just in time for the midterms. Whatever. I don't care as long as they come home.
Well, they're supposed to be coming home by the end of 2014. He might speed it up a little bit. I mean, you never know. I mean, if they're back before the elections, it won't be all that much shorter. They were supposed to be out of there at the end of that year anyway. So even if they're back by, say, the summer of 2014.
I want to see John McCain go out there and complain about how we didn't finish the job, blah, 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 blah. Send more troops.
The minute we walk out of there, Afghanistan is going to go right back to where they were before we walked in the door. Nothing will change. It'll be as if we're almost never there.
That's fine.
I mean, I'm sorry.
I don't give a fuck about Afghanistan in the first place. We shouldn't have been there.
Well, fairness. I think after 9/11, that was the base of Al-Qaeda's operations. That's where they had the training camps. That's where the terrorists came.
Yeah, we didn't need to be there for 12 years.
Well, we dropped the ball. We should have been right from the very beginning training an Afghan army. You know, we went into Iraq, which was a total blunder in my opinion.
We went into Afghanistan so we could go into Iraq. That's really what it came down to. It's we're in one country, we'll make it.
Afghanistan was a legitimate fight. I think we had no choice but to go to Afghanistan. If we did not,
well, those people who actually did attack us.
It would have been an invitation to attack us again. I mean, those guys.
Yeah, that's true.
Were operating.
Afghanistan didn't attack us.
Afghanistan attacked us.
No, people in Afghanistan attacked us.
People associated with the Afghan government with their permission
ran Afghanistan. Taliban was actually in control.
Afghanistan
they were running the nation of Afghanistan.
That's all right. They'll be in charge again. Then we get to go back. It'll be awesome.
Taliban was allied with Al-Qaeda. And that's why we had to go into Afghanistan and take them out.
And one of the very important things that Obama talked about the differences, because every libertarian will insist that Obama said he was ending all the wars, which he didn't say. He said he was escalating Afghanistan.
Yes.
And why is there a difference between Afghanistan and Iraq? Because Afghanistan attacked us, Iraq didn't. And that's a very important difference to make that Republicans do not understand. Republicans will always try to blur the difference between the two wars. Afghanistan was a justified war. Iraq was a war of choice.
Yeah, they assume that all Muslims are the same. They're all in cahoots, so that's why they're ignorant.
Well, they're not white.
But Iraq was a secular country, even though the majority of the population was Muslim. It was run by a secular government. It was not an Islamic fundamentalist government.
This is true.
Taliban was an Islamic fundamentalist government who had no respect for anybody else's religion, which is why they were destroying Buddhist artifacts long before they got in trouble with us over.
Yeah, that was so weird.
No, it's not. They don't believe in idolatry. And they saw.
And they don't believe in other people having.
Well, the question now,
freedom of worship.
of course, the question is,
fascists,
would they blow up the pyramids if they had the chance?
Oh, probably would.
That would just be insane.
Of course.
Well, they are insane. I mean,
well, yeah, that's true.
They cannot accept. They're just like Republicans in Kansas. They cannot accept that other people might practice a religion different than theirs.
Well, the American Taliban. The name sticks. It's there for
it
a
was
reason.
a tragedy. What I was talking about was that there were these Buddhist carvings on a mountaintop.
They're like a good 60 feet tall.
They were enormous carved, statues.
Very old.
And they were literally centuries old.
World heritage.
And Afghanistan, the Taliban had no respect for any kind of religion other than their own, and they view this as a insult to Islam somehow.
Then again, the British did shoot the nose off the Sphinx.
No, I don't know about that. But anyway, the British Museum even offered the Taliban like millions of dollars, and that they were going to go into Afghanistan and remove this huge
Which
thing.
would have been quite the undertaking.
It would have been a tremendous undertaking, and the Taliban said, "No, we don't want your money. We'll just blow it up," and they did. And it was a real travesty. Centuries old.
Well, think of it this way.
Now,
Most of
honestly,
those guys are dead.
I was telling people at the time, back in 2001 when it happened, that if I were the president of the United States, I would say, look, sometimes people have to tolerate when somebody else's religious artifacts are in their country in the name of religious pluralism and being respectful to each other. You tolerate that, and you accept the fact that people who worship a different religion might want to be able to visit their sites in your country.
That sounds very liberal of you.
For example, my friends over in Israel happen to have something going on in their territory called the Dome of the Rock. Now, if you think it's okay to blow up the if you think it's okay to blow up the Buddhist statues, I might, talk to Israel about how they should be blowing up the Dome of the Rock, because it's the same thing.
Yeah, but Dome of the Rock is important to other religions, not just Islam.
No, really, the Dome of the Rock is just Muslim.
All right, moving along.
The rock it's on is important to everybody.
Right.
Moving along. He also talked about the minimum wage and how, raising it to, what did he say, $9?
Right.
Now, this is not a great, huge leap. Oh, all right, it's not a great, huge leap in New York. New York, I believe, is already like $8.25, $8.75.
It's a bit of a raise. But
for a lot of other states, it would be a significant boost.
$1.75 is a pretty big raise.
Yeah, so
$9 an hour. You're not. Come on.
Of course, the Republicans hate the idea immediately. Of course, and really, what it comes down to is they're complaining. They're like, oh, boo-hoo-hoo, oh, you're going to put people out of business, oh, they won't be able to hire as many people, which is bullshit, because you hire as many people as you need. That's how businesses work.
Very few people, by the way, percentage-wise, actually earn minimum wage.
Well,
we're talking about 2.5% of the population actually earns minimum wage. A lot of people realize, you can't really live on minimum wage if you want to attract halfway decent quality employees.
I mean, it depends on what you mean by living on minimum wage. I mean, there's some people. I mean, there's some companies that pay 25 cents more than minimum wage. That's still not a sustainable living wage.
Granted, I mean, you're right.
Like McDonald's does not pay particularly well.
Or granted, they never. No fast food ever does.
Yeah, and so same thing with Walmart. They don't pay like an obscene amount for their part timers. They pay them as little as they can get away with.
Right. I mean, they'll pay as much as the market will allow.
Right,
and if people are willing to earn, $7.50 or $7.75 for an hour, they'll pay the $7.50.
And that's what when they say, oh, it's going to put companies out of business, oh, it's going to stress businesses, oh, they're going to lose money. They're lying. They're full of shit. The only thing it's going to do is cut into their bottom line. It's not going to put them in the red.
Right.
They just won't be drowning in as much black ink.
Well, there's a whole lot of things they say. First of all, they say that supposedly it's going to they're going to pass it off to the customers.
Which is also bullshit.
Because if you could charge more money for that product, you'd already be charging more money for that product.
An example of this is gas. They will raise the price of gas. Has absolutely nothing to do with the price of oil right now. It has everything to do with what the market will bear.
Right.
Well, but it's also involved with the psychology of them convincing you that they have to charge more.
Exactly.
No, but gas used to be tied to the cost of petroleum, and now, say 4 years ago, when oil traded at $145 a barrel, it was at that point that gas prices tipped $4 a gallon. Now it's just whatever people will buy. Now they can. We'll pay.
People got used to paying $4 a gallon, and now they'll keep paying $4 a gallon because they're used to it. It doesn't mean that if they hiked it up to $6, people would probably stop buying gas quite as much.
For a while. for a while. And then eventually people will
It depends. There's got to be a limit. There's got to be an upper limit. To
of course there will be.
A lot of people are very dependent on gas. They're very dependent on cars to be able to have to go where they have to go.
They have to have no choice.
I mean, that's why.
So was I, but I mean, once we went to a single salary, it was just like time to rearrange our priority. We got a closer doctor. We stopped going out as much. It was like we can't keep driving like this.
And
it's cheaper to use mass transit.
It affected your lifestyle. I mean,
it certainly did. Now I only have to fill up the gas tank once a month. Still costs me $100, but it's still once a month. So the Republicans, of course, are going to fight the minimum wage hike tooth and nail, and it's not going to happen.
But they always do.
Well, no, they voted for it under Bush.
Yeah, but that's because the minimum wage hadn't been raised in 10 years. So
they don't care. That's better for business. As long as the lower minimum wage is, they'd get rid of it altogether, which they've talked about before. They would love to get rid of the minimum wage. But that's just a way of, like, giving, it's like, they give that false equivalence. It's like, well, you guys want to raise it. We want to get rid of it. So let's keep it where it is, which is not the same thing at all. Okay? That's just how they do it. That's how they play their game. They go all the way to the right. So if you go a little bit to the left, they start screaming that you're an extremist and insane and you should meet them halfway, which would, for them, would still be lowering minimum wage.
Well, what they should do also, I think Obama proposed, was indexing it to the rate of inflation, which is, it'll go up incrementally as inflation rises.
But, of course, that would still cost companies money. They would cost them profits, and they don't want to deal with it.
Well, that way you don't have to wait until a Democrat becomes president again, 4 years, 8 years from now.
All right. He also touched on gun control, of course. That was the most passionate part of the speech. There was a whole bunch of people there from various shootings across the country. The Republicans were not happy about this, of course. I think John Boehner had like a stick up his ass the entire speech. Did he even get up once to cop? I don't even know.
Yeah, I think he did get up once briefly. But I forget what it was. He was very sedate.
Yeah, it was sad. But, the entire time, they're talking about guns. All the Republicans, because God forbid. So any comments about that?
I think the most disturbing part of the speech was when they were talking about the woman who stood in line for 3 hours to vote. And, I thought it was very upsetting that Boehner could not stand up and applaud for her, even though she was standing in line for 3 hours. She was 102 years old. I think, to me, it just says the Republican Party is just admitting that they're racist.
And, of course, Fox and Friends, a couple days later, made fun of her. 102-year-old woman stood in line for 3 hours. She didn't have a little sitter or anything like that. She stood in line for 3 hours to vote.
They dismissed it. Like, what's a big deal?
Yeah, it's like, so what? She's 102 years old. She doesn't have anything to do anyway. Does she have any place to go? No, she can stand in line.
All she did was wait in line for 3 hours to vote. Unlike us, we waited maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes tops.
And that really does show that their whole thing is just suppress the vote as much as possible.
They made it very clear during the State of the Union speech that they are doubling down on the idea that black people should have to wait longer than white people to vote. And that's just dandy for them.
Yep. Turn away as many as possible. Oh, we closed the voting booth. You guys have to leave now.
No. Once you wait online. Well, if you're online...
You don't think there was people going around saying it's closed, you should go leave now?
Okay, I didn't hear that.
I guarantee.
There were places where they said that.
And I'm sure they didn't know.
No, by law, if you're online, you have
But they didn't know. Oh, we didn't know. I guarantee that almost never happened in white districts, especially Republican ones. I'm sure they made sure they knew. It's like, no. You can keep taking them as long as possible. Yeah. Now, of course, after Obama's speech, there was Marco Rubio. Oh, excuse me.
Yeah.
No, you didn't do that correctly.
See, even that was more smooth than Marco Rubio's.
Observe. Here's the correct way to do it.
Okay.
The whole thing was just terrible. I feel bad for him because it shouldn't have happened. It shouldn't have happened that way at all.
I mean, it overshadowed everything he said.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that he took the drink of water. It's that he did it so awkwardly. I mean, he could have easily gotten to a break in the speech, taken a second, taken a sip, looked back at the camera, blah, 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 and kept going. But no, he did it very, very, very awkwardly, so it was very, very funny. But other than that, his speech was full of shit anyway. So
I think his staffers should be fired. I think it's ridiculous that his staffers, it's your job when you're a staffer of a senator to protect your candidate, and you're supposed to make sure the glass of water is in front of him when he's giving a speech.
Well, I don't think they wanted it in camera. Of course, he could have found a lower stool so it would be right in front of him. You still couldn't see it, but
you always make sure there's a glass of water, regardless of whether you want it in camera. The one thing you don't want in camera is for somebody to start
Right.
while they're speaking. Make sure that there's a glass of water. By the way, I think Fox had shown, or somebody had shown, Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, a couple of other people drinking water during a speech. When it's right in front of you, nobody notices that you did it.
Well, that's true.
It's a very common thing. You don't speak without water in front of you. Everybody in public speaking knows that. You don't speak without water in front of you.
I know the cameraman must have wanted to show himself because all of a sudden he's like, "Oh crap, you moved!"
Not necessarily true. In Congress, they always speak. They don't necessarily have water in front of them.
Yes, they do.
No,
we're not getting into an argument about this.
All right.
Thoughts about the actual speech?
All right, boilerplate. Obviously, it was all Romney. It was Mitt Romney's speech rehashed. I mean, obviously,
yeah, it was. It's like he didn't. It wasn't based on the speech that Obama gave at all.
I believe Richard Maddow.
No.
I believe other outfits also.
That's right. She did it chunk by chunk, which was really sad and embarrassing.
It was like almost the same damn thing, almost verbatim that Romney said.
Yeah, Romney should be suing for copyright infringement or plagiarism.
Oh yeah, right. It was obviously just regular boilerplate. He was responding to Obama's speech at all, and he created this straw man like Obama hates America.
The title of the article we wrote about it for Addicting Info was something effect of Marco Rubio gives speech to empty chair. So I was like, yeah, that's about right.
See, the thing is, you guys are paying attention to the substance of the speech. You're not realizing the speech is not received by its substance; it's received by its style.
Well, he failed in that point.
No.
Well, he failed on the water, but the thing
the water undermined it.
Marco Rubio is a much more compelling speaker, and when he does things like he says, they're trying to say that we don't like clean water and clean air. By the way, in the same speech right afterwards, he says, we can't do anything about the weather. So he's making it very clear that he is in favor of policies that are dangerous to clean water and clean air. He talks about more oil and gas exploration. He's in favor of things, and coal. He's in favor of things that endanger the water and the air, but he doesn't want you to say that about him. But the thing is, he sounds very convincing. If I didn't know those things about water, and if I didn't know those things about coal and oil and gas, I would believe him. He just, he looks convincing. So sincere. He sounds so sincere.
Speaking of
stagecraft-wise, it was very smart. You had him in an office, very presidential. You had the window. You had the Capitol behind him. You had the American flag.
It's gonna be funny if he runs and loses.
It was really actually stagecraft-wise, it was fine.
As a speaker, we should be afraid.
His delivery was fine. The substance of the speech was crap, and it was completely undermined by the fact he reached for water. If it wasn't for reaching for the water, people probably would have listened to the speech more. It would have gotten at least a little more attention.
Well,
but his delivery, his diction, his eye contact, the style was fine.
Well, he certainly didn't bomb as badly as the last two. Yeah, Jindal and wait, no, who was it last year?
Ryan, I think. No,
that's right. No, was it Paul Ryan last year?
McConnell?
Yeah, I think it was McConnell. No, McConnell did all right. Again, it was just that
Governor Ultrasound.
The substance of the speech was like very right wing, and that's why a lot of people didn't receive it.
Rand Paul gave a speech. No one cared. I don't. So we're gonna just skip that one.
There was one thing that stood out.
I saw the speech. I don't remember it.
Yeah, it was like blah 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 liberty, freedom, blah blah blah.
There was one thing that stood out to me in both Rubio's speech and Rand Paul's speech. It's the thing that I've been angry with Democrats most about. Democrats need to make the case for government. Democrats need to make it clear that government is democracy. Government is the voice of the people.
It's not a separate entity.
When you have larger government, it means larger democracy. It means the American people are making, when there's regulations, it means the American people are making decisions about what they want to be allowed and not allowed. And when Barack Obama says during his speech, we don't need bigger government, we need smarter government. Yes, he's correct that it's important to take the government resources that we're allocating and allocate them in a smarter way. But he's also feeding into the idea that big government is bad and bigger government is bad, which implies government is bad.
At a minimum, that government is inefficient. At a minimum, you're making the case that we don't want it to be too big because we all know it's bureaucratic and therefore slow to respond.
As long as you detach the idea of government from the American people driving the government, Republicans get away with murder. Because what Republicans are really against is the American people making decisions about how things work. And as long as you could talk about government without talking about the fact that it's the government of the people, by the people, and for the people, Republicans win.
Now, speaking of bigger government and more efficient government, we're going to touch this real quick. Elizabeth Warren pretty much humiliated a bunch of the heads of the various banking committees throughout the government.
Regulatory agencies.
The regulatory agencies, the FDIC and a whole bunch of them.
Right.
Basically, all the ones that are supposed
FCC
to,
and all
the FCC, the ones that are supposed to be watchdogging Wall Street, but don't. Or if they watchdog them, they give them a little slap on the wrist. Like,
Right.
Shame on you for taking $1 trillion.
Well,
Here's a $2 billion fine, because whoop-de-doo.
It's like they're afraid to. If we take action against a bank, somehow that'll totally crash the economy again.
Right, even if they do something...
More importantly, it'll stop them from getting their next job in the banking
probably,
industry.
right. More importantly, right?
And that's even when they do, flat-out, completely, absolutely illegal things, obviously above, no matter what, you can't deny it was illegal. It's like, well... You don't want to arrest them because, it might make the banks nervous.
Right.
Well,
they did pay a fine.
Exactly.
It's like, come on.
So Elizabeth Warren, called the guys to the carpet and, you're the head of these agencies that are supposed to be watching Wall Street. And she asked a very simple question. And they all choked on it. When was the last time you took a bank to court? And they were like, The
answer is never. The answer is we have not ever done that.
They don't take them to court. And then never mind criminal court, to put someone in jail. Just to court. Just to say, yes, you did something wrong and illegal. It's like, no. They just pay a fine and they get to say, oh, well, as part of the deal of paying the fine, we don't admit to any wrongdoing.
Right.
By the way, this hearing is going on in Congress. If you look at the table they're all at, it's covered in water bottles.
Yeah, true.
Murphy says there's no water in Congress.
No. There's no water at the lectern. Usually.
I'm sorry.
Yes, there is.
You've been smugged.
No, that's true.
The smugging.
Whatever you see Congress walk before in front of the well of the House, eyes in opposition, blah. You don't see the
because
water
you
right
don't
there.
see that there's a.
Because they walk up to the podium.
In front of
they
where
walk
the
up
water
to the podium. They don't have the water right there in front of them all the time.
The water's in the podium.
All right, we'll go back. I'll come back with this. All right.
But I'm sorry, we lost our audience. We might as well end the podcast.
I know, right? Sorry.
You bored them to tears. They're all dead right now. Good job.
All right, the 7 of you who are still
the few of you are still with us.
Thank you.
So Elizabeth Warren must have really pissed off these people, and I'm sure the Wall Street Bank, the bankers are like, oh God damn it.
No, thank God. Thank God she won. This is what they wanted to avoid. They wanted,
exactly.
They were going for Scarborough, hoping that he would just roll over. Hey,
they might have been better off with her in charge of the Consumer Protection Bureau.
Probably.
Consumer Finance Protection Bureau. They might have been better off with her in charge there than becoming a senator.
Because then at least she'd be answering their questions as opposed to them answering her questions.
But, now that she's a senator, yeah, it's not looking so good for them. And she's just going to quietly keep making their lives miserable, which is good.
Well, at a minimum, it makes them uncomfortable. At a minimum, it makes them, oh, wow, we're a bunch of, useless pricks.
Just think, the longer she's there, the more comfortable she's going to get, the louder she's going to get.
And I hope that this might actually lead to some actual legislation, God forbid, and maybe prosecute some people, maybe, God forbid.
Amazing. Although, the SEC was pressing a suit against Standards & Poor's, I think it is.
Yes.
For their role in lying their asses off about their AAA ratings for junk bonds that they knew were junk. That they did it anyway so they can keep their access with the banks, because otherwise the banks
the problem is the banks are paying Standards & Poor's to give them the rating.
Right.
What do you think they're going to do?
It's very incestuous, It's kind of like, I know I have these things that are crap, but I need you to say, they're awesome, and I want to pay you money, you a fee.
And if you don't say they're awesome,
then I'm not going to pay
take
you.
their business somewhere else.
Exactly. And you're going to...
School kids paid their teachers to rate their performance. What do you think their grades would look like?
Exactly.
If they could pick which teacher is going to rate your performance,
exactly.
I'm going to pay this teacher to rate my performance.
Right.
You're going to get all A's.
Right.
So that was like a big deal in the front. It's not just, they're not just suing Standards & Poor's, they're actually taking individual people to court, which was a big deal.
Right.
They're actually putting faces to the people who helped do this. So that was shocking in and of itself. I'm guessing they didn't pay up their protection money for the month or something. I don't know. Anyway, we're going to have to move on because we're still running short on time here. Joe Scarborough, who is the talk show host on MSNBC for 3 hours a morning, former Republican congressman.
Well, he's Republican, but he's a former congressman.
Right. Well, yeah, he's not a former Republican. He's still a Republican. And nothing showed that more than his little comment that he made during the end of one of his shows about Wayne LaPierre and Paul Krugman. Now, Paul Krugman had been there like a week or so before and pretty much kicked his ass all over the place. And, you know, he was like, oh, blah, 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 this and the other. And Paul Krugman just shredded him. You know, that was...
Scarborough or LaPierre?
No, LaPierre wasn't there for that. No, this was just...
You're saying he shredded Scarborough.
Yes, Scarborough and the other conservative guest on there who was telling him that she doesn't know what he's talking about when it comes to the economy. And Krugman made it very clear that he's been right for years and years and years on end. And when are they going to start taking him seriously? And why do they keep taking these people seriously like Joe Scarborough, who've been consistently wrong about the economy for years and years and years? And, of course, the answer he got was, well, you only need to be wrong once, which I thought was an incredibly low bar to set, you know, or extremely high bar to set for Krugman.
Republicans should leave the business entirely.
Exactly. It's like, okay, so Krugman gets to be wrong once. He gets to be wrong once, so therefore you should, if someday he's wrong, that negates everything he's ever said. Right. But the conservatives are wrong constantly, and if they're right once and it proves everything they say, it's like, that's not how it works. That's not how reality works.
It's a double standard, obviously.
You know, and Krugman was pointing out that this whole austerity craze, they have yet to find a single country that it's worked in.
Right.
Not one.
And plenty of countries where it has the opposite is true.
Exactly. None of them have worked. None of them have broke even. They've all done shitty. All of them. All the European countries they're trying to get are failing miserably with austerity, which is, you know, it's working out great for the rich people. They're getting even richer, but it's terrible for the economy and it's terrible for the, you know, the average worker. And Krugman's pointing this out, and they're bitching at him like he's, you know, he's crazy. So now we have Joe Scarborough, who was complaining that Krugman is just as extreme as Wayne LaPierre. Now, mind you, it took 20 dead kids and Wayne LaPierre going absolutely fucking insane on the air for Scarborough to be like, maybe the NRA is a bit extreme. You know,
Scarborough is a genius. Because what Scarborough does best, Scarborough knows that he is speaking generally to a left audience, you know, from moderate left to far left. And what he does is he does everything he possibly can to blur things,
muddy the waters,
to create false equivalencies, to anything he can do to make Republicans sound more sympathetic. And he knows liberals lean towards the idea of thinking everybody is just as right as everybody else. He knows liberals lean towards pluralism. So he knows it's an easy sell, and he's very good at selling it. I am amazed. Anytime I watch Scarborough, anytime I watch him, I am amazed at the little things he slips by. Just the little twists and little falsehoods he slips by, and I could see how many liberals would be like, "Oh, okay."
Well, he's amiable enough, and that's the thing. The charm to him is like people can, you know, basically packaging it where they're like, "Hey, I'm a Republican, but I'm not a far right-wing guy."
And just so we're clear, when someone says
MSNBC, Joe, by the way,
MSNBC is the same as Fox. You find me the 3-hour chunk of Fox News time with a former Democrat as a host or a liberal as a host, and I'll agree. Until then, shut the fuck up.
An elected Democrat.
I don't care anything. I don't care. It could be any liberal. It could be Alan Combs, for all I care. You give him 3 hours where it's his show and he gets to dictate what's going on it, then I'll like, okay, maybe they're the same. Until then, you're full of shit. I don't want to hear it.
Scarborough was elected as part of the Newt Gingrich Revolution. So he's not just any conservative. He's not somebody the liberals put in there to pretend they're conservative, like Alan Combs used to be.
No, yeah, it's how conservative modified. So, no,
yeah. So when he turns around and says Paul Krugman is just as extreme on the deficit and the debt as Wayne LaPierre is on guns, that's an amazing equivalency.
Yeah,
and completely false.
It's a leap.
Let's look at Wayne LaPierre doesn't think there should be background checks because criminals won't follow them. He thinks that kindergarten teachers should be packing guns at all times.
It's a false equivalency, basically.
I'm aware of that, but Wayne LaPierre thinks that at any moment, and we're going to get to this in a second, that civilization is going to collapse and we're all going to be armed to fight off the thugs. He also thinks that the government should be able to be overthrown by Bubba and his buddies on a weekend warrior trip. Okay, this is Wayne LaPierre. This is what he thinks about guns. This is why everyone should have a gun. Never mind, ignore the part where he's shilling for the gun industry. This is why we need guns. Paul Krugman has said that the stimulus wasn't big enough, which was proven correct. It wasn't big enough by half. He wanted it to be at least double and less of tax cuts, because tax cuts weren't helping at the time.
Yeah, politically, though, it was a much heavier lift. Obviously.
No, it wasn't going to happen at the time, but he was right. It wasn't large enough to do what it was supposed to do. It didn't jumpstart the economy enough.
Well, let's remember that when the stimulus was first discussed, we had 59 votes in the Senate. And it would have been a much easier lift to do it then than now. So,
well, now it would be completely impossible. But still, it wasn't big enough. He said that inflation is not going to hit and interest rates are not going to go up. And they didn't.
Right. You're right about that.
And he also said that this is the time that you want to borrow money and spend on infrastructure and government spending to pump up the economy, because interest is going to stay low, and this is when you borrow money. You borrow it when it doesn't cost you anything.
Right.
And he was right about that.
Completely right about that.
Except we didn't borrow because, Republicans are like, no, spending evil because it'll help the economy. Oh, sorry, wait, I wasn't supposed to say that last part. So he was right on everything he said so far, but somehow he's the extremist. Being right is not being extreme. Okay? I mean, I compared it to the Galileo. It's like, oh, he was a radical. He was an extremist. Oh, the earth goes around the sun. It's like, well, yeah. He was right. Doesn't make him an extremist. It just makes the people who had a vested interest in saying he was wrong morons.
Well, the major difference between the two is, like, Wayne LaPierre is fundamentally hostile to government, the idea of centralized government, whereas Krugman obviously is not hostile.
Well, no, it's not even that. He's just his ideas are so far out of the mainstream and reality that they really have no bearing on reality whatsoever.
I think really it's a bigger test of how far are you away from the American people. Sometimes the American people could be completely wrong about something, but they're mainstream. That's the definition of mainstream, is whatever the majority of the American people believe in.
Doesn't mean they're right, of course.
Clearly Krugman is not as extreme as LaPierre if you try them both in the court of public opinion.
Well, even if the public completely thought that Krugman was completely insane, if 90% of the public thought he was insane, it still wouldn't be as extreme because he's still right.
Well,
everyone can think you're crazy, but if you're right, you're right.
I think you can be extreme and be correct.
Well, it depends on how you presenting yourself as a psychotic is not the same thing as saying no. This is what 1 + 1 is 2. Well, I can say 1 + 1 is 2, or I could scream it down your throat and threaten to kill you. One's extreme, one's not.
I think it depends on what your definition of extreme is.
Yeah, but in the end, it's Scarborough. You have to understand. This is Joe Scarborough trying to minimize Krugman by tarring him, saying that he's no different from Wayne LaPierre.
Just like he tried, and he tried doing the same thing with Nate Silver.
He
mocked
him. Obama's going to win by 90%. 90% chance of winning? Ooh. And it turns out, of course, it was 90%. So it's based on math.
So the moral of the story is, fuck Joe Scarborough. He doesn't know shit. Or he's a liar. Or both.
I think
either way.
Genius.
He's actually pretty genius. He is pretty brilliant, I have to say.
He's a douchebag.
At muddying the waters.
Carl Rove's a genius too. He's still a douchebag.
Oh yeah.
Rove,
I wouldn't let Carl Rove babysit my children.
No, but Rove is
pretty creepy. Rove is pretty
creepy. Rove, I think Rove is overrated, personally.
Well, he was overrated. Now he's overrated. All right. Now, speaking of Wayne LaPierre, that's going to move us on to our gun nut of the week, which, of course, is Wayne LaPierre. Shocking. He'd written a op-ed, like 3 or 4 pages, and it was completely insane and ranting and psychotic, and he was going on about how it's not about overthrowing the government anymore. The new gun nut lie of the week is we need guns for the incipient end of civilization as we know it. And this is what we listened to last week with Alan Keyes. Was it last week that we played that? No, it was 2 weeks ago with Alan Keyes. 2 weeks ago with Alan Keyes, or whatever it was, he was ranting and raving about how, the end of civilization is coming any day now. And why are they coming to take our guns now? It's very suspicious, the whole thing. But really, this is their new line of bullshit, is that, at any moment, a natural disaster is going to destroy civilization as we know it, and we need guns to protect ourselves.
I've commented about this.
It's kind of Republican fantasy, honestly.
I've commented about this a couple times, but now I really want everybody out there, go to Wikipedia and look up the Turner Diaries. Because this is entirely Wayne LaPierre is practically quoting the Turner Diaries. You want to know why I think the Republicans are racist? It's because he basically isn't hiding the fact that he's a big fan of the Turner Diaries. He thinks it's going to come true. He thinks there's a race war coming.
Yeah, they're kind of hoping for
the
that.
people in South Brooklyn are the dangerous people.
Now, mind you, okay, first, there is no such South Brooklyn. There's like South Manhattan. There's South
Lower
Bronx.
Manhattan.
It's not even. It's South Bronx, Lower Manhattan. There is no South Brooklyn. It's not split up that way. In all
fairness, he's not from New York City, so he would.
Then he shouldn't be talking about it.
Yeah.
Okay,
that's how you know he's full of crap, because if you're talking about something that really happened, he would have looked at a news story that had an actual neighborhood named that was a real neighborhood.
Yeah. Right. So the only reason he said South Brooklyn is because he couldn't say the South Bronx. If he could have said the South Bronx, he absolutely would have said the South Bronx, because he was looking for that connection to the black.
Yeah, something that sounded like crazed black people running around stealing everything.
Right. Now, and the funny thing is, the southern part of Brooklyn, Coney Island and Bensonhurst and whatever, those are not black areas. They're not black, predominantly black neighborhoods. There's a lot of Italians. It's a lot of mix. Okay, Brooklyn is a very mixed.
A lot of Bukharian Jews.
That too.
Yeah, it's very much a mixed neighborhood.
I mean, I lived in Brooklyn for a good chunk of my life, and even now, those areas they're not black.
Yeah, Bay Ridge is mostly white.
So when they're talking about how South Brooklyn degenerated into roving bands of marauders, he's full of shit. It didn't happen, and it certainly wasn't black people.
They're trying to conjure the images of like gangs of roving blacks,
basically,
raping and
pillaging. What he did was he took a few minutes, sat down, watched the Warriors. And the Warriors ended up in Coney Island, and there was a whole bunch of black gangs running around in Coney Island. So, there you go.
Warriors.
My yay. But, I mean, the whole thing was ridiculous. It was, and Latino gangs, or South America, Central America.
It was definitely an appeal to,
they're drug gangs all throughout the city.
Wake up, black people.
Yeah. They're going to come and get you.
Really close to one of these, like Aryan Nation type screens,
give them time.
I'm sure guns, black people, they're coming for you. It's almost that bad.
So, and now this is the new story, because I've heard it in other places now too, where it's like you don't really need guns to fight off the government. You need the guns for when government collapses, because the government collapse is coming any day now. And while you're waiting for it, you should buy some of our heritage seeds and buy our
survival seeds,
survival seeds. Yeah, and don't forget your Cougarans. And
really. Yeah, in the future, money won't be
your
valuable.
Bunker.
You need gold.
Yeah, no, don't forget to build your bunker.
Gold. Don't forget to build your bunker. Save space in the vault.
They're secretly hoping for it, honestly. I think they're secretly, oh, please, God, please let the race wars come, please.
Well, I think Justin's got a point that they're secretly hoping that there are all these Republicans that'll buy all this crap.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean,
there's an economy out there.
Yeah, no, there definitely is. There's definitely an economy
guns,
based on fear.
bunkers, gold, survival gear.
It's the stupid economy. Yeah. Is what it really is.
Paranoid economy.
It's the stupid economy. It's the economy for stupid people. These are the people who
stupid tax.
Yeah, when they say a fool and his money is soon parted, that's who they're talking about. All right, we're going to move on to the next bit. Michael Bloomberg, Mayor Michael Bloomberg, has his super PAC. He's using it to go after. Michael Bloomberg is a billionaire mayor of New York, who I am not particularly enthralled with, but he's actually going after the NRA directly.
Yes.
Directly going after the NRA. He's starting to put his money in with the super PAC, of course, in out-of-state campaigns and directly attacking anybody, including Democrats, who have an A rating for the NRA.
And so far, he got his first scalp.
Yep, he got his first scalp. And
it's a bit crazy that anybody could have been a front runner in a Chicago seat who has a positive NRA rating. I mean, Bloomberg is tapping into something that Democrats should have tapped into a long time ago. Democrats just give people a free pass for it.
For the first time.
Chicago clearly is not a place where people want to vote for somebody who's endorsed by the NRA.
Exactly.
For the first time, you have not just one, but two people who have been branded a negative connotation because of their Hutchinson and Halverson. Yep. These two ladies in Chicago ready for their Jesse Jackson old seat.
Now, Halverson is the Republican. You can tell because she's white, and Hutchinson is.
No, they're both Democrats.
They're both Democrats.
No, I thought Halverson's.
Halverson, you would think
she was a Republican.
You would think she was a Republican because of her speech one time before
that ranting crazy speech, and she's not a Republican.
She's a Democrat.
Wow, that's
and
sad.
she was a front runner.
That's even worse.
She was, I guess, a blue dog.
She gave like a several-minute speech ranting and raving
You
about
would
how
think she was
guns.
Yes,
guns.
by the rhetoric, you would assume she was
Basically,
Republican.
Ted Nugent whacks off to watching this speech.
Anyway, she was the front
There's
runner.
an image for you.
She was the front runner, and the constant barrage of negative ads just took her out. And Hutchinson, another lady, a black lady, another Democrat,
She had
an A+ rating also.
Right, she had an 11th hour conversion to anti-NRA.
Exactly. She tried her best. She said, "Oh no, that wasn't me. That was some other lady named Hutchinson."
Yeah, it didn't work.
Did she really say that?
No. But, but she tried to disavow her past, and the NRA brand took her down too. And now there's another lady who had an F rating. I forget her name, but Kelly. She's
Robin Kelly.
Robin Kelly will probably win the nomination, and so win the district because Republicans don't have no prayer.
Yeah, no.
So there you have it.
That particular district covers the south part of Chicago.
First Congress,
there you go, south.
Illinois first district. There you go.
That's where Bad
Second.
Leroy Brown lives.
Second district.
Yes.
All right. There
What's
you go.
Bad Leroy Brown.
Oh,
South side of
man in the whole
Chicago.
white town.
Okay.
So, hopefully Bloomberg will show the way. Because what happened was, back in the 90s, the Democrats got their asses kicked, and they somehow linked this to the NRA. So they became totally afraid to do anything about guns.
That's true.
They really somehow got the fear of the NRA put into them. It's like, oh, look, can't fight guns. And what happened after that? Gun proliferation exploded. Almost literally.
It's interesting to see what's going to happen in future races. I don't think this is going to work in red states or really conservative areas. I think this might help in moderate areas or left-leaning areas or Democratic areas.
Well, yeah, moderate.
The NRA brand might be considered
purple to blue. The NRA is going to completely lose their currency. In deep red, the NRA is still going to have whatever they want because the NRA. But even then, if there's a significant amount of moderate Republicans there, they're going to be like,
at a minimum, it puts the NRA on the defensive, and they're not used to that.
Nope.
And they're like, oh my God, what? No, you say no to us?
I'm skeptical. I think that some of the Newtown, some of the momentum behind Newtown, I think is starting to already wear off.
It will wear off.
Well, considering that it usually wears off within a week.
Yeah, it's lasted longer, but I'm still wondering.
No.
This is going to be this particular election is going to be a big deal because if these two drop out of the race, well, one of them already dropped out, but the other one
will likely drop out also.
There's still too many Americans who say the NRA best represents their views over Obama, even while they tell you at the same time that they want universal background checks.
Right. But if they get universal background checks passed,
that could happen.
Right now, people think that we have universal background checks.
No,
I don't.
Oh, they certainly do.
I think they're smarter than that.
They certainly think. They do not understand that we don't have it already. There's a lot of people, they did polling on a lot of people like, maybe we don't have it already. Of course we have it already. It's like, no, we don't. They think we have it. That's why they were like, well, I support that, but no, we don't actually have it. So, this is why the NRA is so freaked out right now, is because people are finding out that no, we don't actually have universal background checks.
Well, I think even some Republicans are on board now. So we kind of have to do something about this.
Yeah, well, they finally have gotten enough publicity where enough people have started hearing that we don't have universal background checks, which means anyone can buy a freaking gun, whether they're crazy, have beaten their wife, been arrested for murder, blah, 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 blah.
Insane the whole
time. So people finally started hearing this and saying, oh, that doesn't make any sense. Why would you do that? Why would you oppose that?
And we continue to have the distortion over what percentage of gun show sales, what percentage of gun sales are happening without a background check and why. And Republicans, are making it sound like this 40% of sales that are happening without background checks are all just sons to mothers,
which is
and
bullshit.
cousin to cousin and all that. No, clearly, clearly the industry is selling guns at gun shows and claiming that they're private sales.
Right.
But that information has not adequately been documented and it's not out there before the American people.
And they're making sure the ATF can't do that.
Right.
They don't want those numbers out there.
That's because the NRA undermined the ATF and all this.
But we went into that the last time.
There used to be this thing called journalism people used to do where they used to find out stuff like that without the government having to be involved.
Yeah. Newspapers are a dying breed.
On that side note.
All right, we're going to have to wrap this up tonight because Murphy's got to go to work and print stuff in the New York Times.
Exactly.
Filthy liberal rag.
Thank you.
He has to spill his blue liberal blood into the ink.
Exactly, right?
All right.
He has to grind debris into the
And arugula.
and arugula.
Yes, you have to use arugula as well.
And pate.
Pate.
Such a liberal. All right. We'll see you next week. This is your host, the Filthy Liberal Scum, Justin Rosario signing off. The Mike Murphy.
Good night.
And the Fat Smug Bastard.
Meeples! Meeples!
See you next week.
Good night.